Okay, well, hello everyone. And in this lesson, we're going to be painting these sunflowers. This is a painting that I did years ago, and I had sold it, and then someone bought it again, a really good painter friend of mine. And so it kind of made me think, well, it'd be kind of fun to not only give her the painting when I'm done that she bought, but also kind of a little lesson on how to paint sunflowers with it. So here I am. I'm just this is my reference photo, and I'm going to be working in oil. I've got my paint out. Going to be working with up here. You can't see, but there's black and white, and then I have Indian yellow and some cad yellow light and orange, viridian. I've got cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, transparent red oxide and brown oxide, cad red light, yellow ochre, cad yellow medium, and then there's a few purples here. This is permanent magenta, dioxazine violet, and this is my red, pinky red color. I'm just blanking on the name. Let me just see. It's quinacridone red. Sorry, quinacridone red. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to painting this. I love painting sunflowers. I could probably paint them, you know, without a reference photo. I painted so many of them, and I really enjoy painting them. They're like the most happy flower I think there is to look at, and they definitely are very inspiring. So I'm just going to put out, I have a little viridian. I'm just going to put out a little bit of sap green as well. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to start by doing a wash over the canvas just to get rid of the white. I'll use a little bit of red oxide and some ultramarine blue, and just kind of, maybe I'll throw a little bit of sap green in there because I'm going to have a lot of greens in there. Just something to eliminate that white canvas. So I'm just using some Gamsol. It's there's no other mediums here. Also, I haven't added canvas. This is just a Blick canvas, straight out of package, no gessoing or anything. Just putting the paint right on. They're very smooth. I like them because they're quite smooth already. So they, you know, some canvases I buy at Michael's or whatever, I have to kind of, I want to, you know, go and put some gesso on just so they're not so rough, but these are quite nice. Okay. So I like to do this because then later there's the problem of having any little white speckles isn't as bad coming through if you know, if you don't get everything coated properly. Gray tends to take on whatever color is around it. So, and I'm working on a glass palette so I can kind of clean off that little puddle I made. And there we go. So now the next thing I want to do is kind of look at how everything is in this composition here. And I have one coming off the canvas and one going that way and then one going that way. So I'm just going to kind of mark off where those sunflowers are. And I'm working off, I'm using my phone, but I also directly in front of me have the reference on an iPad, so I can see everything good. Okay, so there's one here. And this is just a little chirp and some transparent red oxide. And I'm just kind of roughing in where everything is going. And this one is kind of facing this way. I want to have room to put in those little, the back of the sunflower, all those nice green bits. So just make sure you have enough room for those. I'm just kind of, you know, really roughly sketching here. And then I'll get some transparent brown oxide and kind of, this one comes a little lower. And kind of mark off where those centers are right away. I like to get those in right away so I kind of know a little bit of paper towel there. Yeah, I always tell my students, get those centers in right away, because then you can, you right away can see the direction and which way the sunflower is going. It'll help you when you start to work on adding the petals. So this is just some transparent brown oxide here. Okay. And I don't mind, just it'll blend in so well with the yellow. I don't mind, you know, just kind of making a few of those sunflowery marks, you know, to give yourself an idea of like kind of the direction they're going. I got a little too much chirp there, so I'm just going to dab that up and go back down with some more. Same with here. I added got a little carried away with the turp. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I want to, before things start to dry too much, I want to kind of dab out where these purple flowers are going to go. And so I'll just get my paper towel and a little bit, I dipped it in a little bit of the turp, and I'm just going to kind of lift off some of that underpaint where those purple flowers are going to go. And there's some over here. So then I kind of know the purple's going to go. Also, I'm going to go ahead and put some of that purple color in right away, because it just gives it that nice bright, that real vivid kind of glow. I get that by putting paint on and then kind of wiping it off. So to get that purple color, I could just, you know, I can use some of this permanent magenta color, but if you don't have that color, what you can do, and what I like is mixing purple. So I got cobalt and some of that quinacridone red, and I'm just mixing some of that in, and it just gives you some of that purple. And I don't really, at this point, the flowers are really abstract, so I'm just kind of marking out some of those areas where I see the purple. I'm just going to work that color around. And then there's some reds. I can get some of that. Just put some alizarin in there. And so now once you get some of those colors down, they're all transparent, so you don't need to worry about them getting too dominant. You can wipe out some, and that's what I do to get that really pretty glow. So just get your paper towel, and this time I'm not really using any of the medium. I'm just using a dry paper towel, so you don't need to. If I add medium to it, then I'll wipe out too much color. See, if I add medium, it really cleans off the color again. So let me get a clean paper towel. And I kind of want it a little more pinky, so I'm going to add some more of that quinacridone red color. And I'll get some more of that pink up here. And then over here. And the beauty is with this thin layer is the background is mostly black. And I think my original idea was the type of flowers I was using was those really big ones that go really tall, and then they have all those little flowers on the sides. So I forget what they're called, but yeah. So I think I got the idea from just those different colors. And so now I'm going to just go ahead and put in a little bit of sap green into that mix. And I just want to get a few of some of those darker greens in there. Because later it's just a lot easier to bring your yellows up and over the green rather than having to add it all in at once later when you're trying to. So I just I'm going to dab some of that sap green in between the flowers. And also this is another nice transparent color, so not too over dominating. If you get the yellow in with it, it actually looks even better when you start adding the yellow from your sunflower. So it looks kind of like a big mess right now, but it's, we're getting a lot of work done that later it'll all make more sense when we get some of that yellow paint in there. And I'll get a little green up in here and maybe use a little viridian in there. I'll kind of use the viridian in the more these is that I want to look more further away, because their color makes them look further away. And then up close, I'll put in more of the warmer greens. Okay. And it's hard when you're painting from your own painting, because you're trying to kind of you want to make it, you don't want to you want it to be pretty close to the same, but it's really hard to get the exact color again. So you just kind of try to do your best to get the same color and same feeling. Okay. And there's some little bit of red over here. And this is a little darker here. Okay, so it's starting to get really fun and lively. So now we can start to block in some of the sunflower. So I usually start with sort of a mid-tone to a darker value first and then build up to my highlights. So I'll take some of that cad yellow medium and I'm going to add a little bit of that red oxide to some of it, maybe some of that red. You want your shadow to still be, you know, warm, so I'll just kind of add a little bit of that, you know, that transparent brown oxide to some of it. See how you get kind of a range of yellows that you can use in the shadows. So I'm going to start putting some of that in. And there's a petal kind of here. Get some more of that color. And so I'm just dulling it with some of this red oxide and some of that either red oxide or the brown oxide. And then, you know, I've added a little bit of this red in there because I see the original had quite a lot of this red color. So I'm going to go and make sure I get that in there. Some of that alizarin, I can kind of, you know, pull some of that in, get it on my brush and kind of just pull some of that in. That looks kind of the way some have color in them and the little lines. And then I'll kind of go to a lighter yellow, but you want to be careful not to go too. You want to stay mid-tone to dark when you're blocking in your sunflower, because otherwise you won't get those nice bright highlights to show up later. So it's really important when you're blocking in to keep those yellows on the darker side, you know, still keeping it warm, but I'm making sure that this is quite dark. And you'll see what I mean when I go and add the highlight. You'll see, because I spent a long time trying to get that to work, and I went through a lot of yellow paint trying to make sunflowers work. Some of that alizarin, and I want to get that nice warm shadow in there because I see quite a bit of that in the original. There's quite a lot of kind of a bright red color, and usually that is there because the light's coming through the petals and it's kind of creating a real glow through the petals. So I'm just going to keep blocking in and mix more of that cad yellow medium and some alizarin, transparent brown oxide. Just creates a really nice warm, or you can use the red oxide. I try to do my brush stroke in kind of, you know, one sweep, but sometimes I'm not worried yet about how the direction of these strokes. It looks kind of funny because I'm painting it like counter to the way it's going. I'm not worried yet about those brush strokes yet. Just getting the paint in that I need to kind of set the stage for those brush strokes to show up. So just gonna, and this is just a Princeton brush I got at Michael's. It's an 8 bright, and it's pretty good for working on canvas. It's got kind of a mid-range kind of flex to it for working on this type of surface. Just trying to make sure I get the same look that the other painting had. So I'm just checking out those petals there. And then this one, the petals go right off the edge. And so once you get this blocking stage, then you can go back and really start changing, adding more values to your painting and really making it pop. But you really got to get those darker yellows in first to make those brighter yellows show up later. So there's some petals that kind of come between. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and kind of adjust the centers a little. So we've got this one here, kind of comes a little lower. It's a little darker. And I'm going to get in some of that alizarin in there. Some of that cad red medium. And same within here. And then go back and darken the centers because you kind of once you get in some more values, you can start to see, where you got to add darker back into your sunflowers. So you kind of want to get that in there before you start adding those nice thick brush strokes of with the highlights. I like to soften those edges off so it really gives you a more dimension to your flower, because you'll see the sharper edges are more on the highlights. And there's quite a lot of red in that one. So I'm just using some of that cad red and kind of putting some of that in there. So you can see the centers give you the, the direction that the flower is going. You can really see that, what this side of the flower is going to be coming over. So this center is facing in a direction. So it really helps you with how you're going to, finish up with the petals. If you kind of get the centers in, I've seen people wait to the end to get the centers, and then they can't figure out why their petals look like they're going the wrong way. And it's all about really, really knowing the direction that you're going in. So now we've got a lot of mid-tone values, and the background's going to be quite dark. So things will really start to take shape. But what I do, just to give my eye sort of gauge what I'm looking at, I'm going to go and put a few of the, bright strokes in, just to really give my eye something to work with. So I've got some cad yellow light, and I just kind of dull it down, mellow it out a little with some of that yellow ochre. And I'm just going to put a few of those brush strokes in there, just to, give my eye something to look at that's quite a lot brighter and lighter than the other. So I'm just working in some of those brighter spots there. And really starts to make the painting come to life. So okay, I think I'll do the same up here. I've got this cad yellow light and a little bit of yellow ochre, just to kind of keep it warm but knock it down a little bit. So it's not the final highlight. It's just sort of, it's brighter a lot brighter than the mid-tone kind of range we've been working with here. Trying to keep it loose and just putting that paint that I'm kind of shoveling on here really thick. And I'm just, I'm placing my brush pretty flat down so that I'm not digging into the underpaint and lifting it all up. And then, a problem. I'm literally scooping up the paint. So my brush has got all this paint on it. Then I'm going to just, head over to wherever I want to put my brush and just put her down. And there's a lot of paint there, but that's okay because it'll dry and it'll look really like nice, thick, beautiful, thick paint. Gives you a good feeling looking at it. So I'm just going to go around and then I'm going to get some of that paint and just kind of doll it down a little and just go in here and get some of those highlights that are on the air. Some of those. Just give it some, like they're blowing in the wind, I kind of, you can't really, you just kind of make your own, you get your own sunflower style. And some are very, that I've seen where every sunflower is kind of different. I kind of like these to think of it like they're, think of it as like they're blowing in the wind or something, it just has a real kind of dramatic feeling more, which I like. And I'll get some more of that cad yellow light and do the same. I'm going to doll it with some yellow ochre. Plus I'm mixing it on this area that I've been mixing the other, so it's going to kind of doll it down. And then I'm going to go and look at where I want that petal and just put it down and then drag it across, and same with this one. You can always fix it if you don't like where you put where you put your mark. You can always go in and, cut it back out using the inside of the sunflower. There's all kinds of ways we can fix it. You can, scrape it off with your palette knife. But you don't have to worry if you don't like where you put it. You can go and get some dark paint and just kind of, like this, just kind of cut in to where you painted it. So just going to keep on blocking in these petals. And then it looks like I finished the painting, the original. It looks like I finished off some of this with a palette knife at the end. So just kind of make them look a little crazy, They're just kind of, just putting some edges on those. And just going around and I think if you get too many, on this side, I don't mind so many details, but if you get too much going on, just take your brush and kind of, you know, combine some of the lines if there's too many for you. Just to soften up some of those marks there. Okay. Alrighty, so I think we'll let those sit for a bit, and I'm going to get a bit of some of the light greens in now. So I'll get some sap and some cad yellow light, and it kind of makes a pretty, you know, greeny color. And you can use a bit of that purple mix if it's still on your palette from this, and that will dull down the green a little. Or you can just type in transparent brown oxide, will always dull greens down a little. And mix a little Gamsol in there, and now I'm just gonna so I got a nice little puddle of this, you know, grayish green color, and I'm just gonna work in some of this here. A few of those pretty little things. And, you know, sometimes I will, as I go through it, I'll change a bit of the green. So some are darker, some are lighter. So I added a little more sap to the puddle instead. And you can add some of this mix you used earlier, which had a little bit of the brown oxide and ultramarine blue, and that really gets it looking darker. Just go around and put in some of those greens, and starts to really add another layer of dimension and fun to the painting, having that green in there. And get a little bit, you can get a little bit of white into that mix, and that'll really, you know, kind of pick up the light on these ones up here. And then I'll get, you know, I'll mix some cobalt blue in there and make some more really bluey green colored stems off to the sides here and down in the shadow colors more. Just give it that kind of cooler, bluer green. And now I'm going to just take a look here. When I'm painting on a flat surface, sometimes I have to check that I've got the the drawing right, because I'll look at it and I'll lift up the painting, and sometimes won't always get the perspective right. So I just wanted to make sure. So I'm getting some black around, and I'm going to add some alizarin to the black, so it's kind of got that little bit warmth to it. And I'm going to just kind of go around and get some of that in there. And there's some up here. And when I'm cutting in that black, I'm kind of making sure I have some, those flowery shapes, showing up. I'm not just painting, a straight line. I'm kind of giving it that look of flowers, coming around. It's a real nice and easy way to get that feeling of flowers in the background, but without having to paint individual flowers and then tightening up your painting again. It's just something I kind of, discovered when I was playing around with layers of oil paint like that. And I thought, hey, why not just put in some color and then, cut out the background around it for fun. And I'm looking at this sunflower down here, and I'm looking kind of like this part here. I just need to cut in a little. I lost the shape. And same with here, kind of give those petals a little more shape. So I'm just cutting out some of the sunflower with the background. And I'm just using black with a little bit of alizarin. And just keeping those edges nice and loose. So it's also a nice way to just, get that color going through your painting. It's really a really great thing to do, because I should remember to do it more often. Just getting that kind of color harmony, and it's fun to do, and you don't use a lot of paint, and you can do it with anything you're painting, really. And then we've got, some hard edges now we've created, so we want to go and soften some of those near the end. I'll work on that. And I just pop in a little bit of that dark background in here. Just adds a lot of dimension to your painting. Getting that in there. And it's fun to do. You just have to kind of decide, how much you want to play around with it. So I'm going to go back and get my brush I was using for the sunflowers. And I'm just going to kind of pull a few of those edges off, but just make sure between times to wipe your brush really good, because otherwise you're going to get the black paint back into your sunflower, and you don't want to muck up your sunflower. So just kind of just take off some of those edges. And remember to wipe your brush between. That just really softens the painting there. And you can kind of blend some of these greens a little so they're not so, stark. Just take my brush, and in between, again, I'm wiping my brush and just taking my brush and softening some of these marks and edges. And I'm going to go and get some, maybe I'll switch to a smaller brush. And so I'm going to switch to a number 4 flat, and I'm going to just work on some of the details in these flowers some more. So I'm looking at my painting, and there's quite a bit more black coming in there. And the black kind of comes in here, but I kind of like this flow of things. So I might just leave that for now and see. Maybe I'll make it a little smaller because it's just kind of narrow it near the top so it's not so big and clunky. And same with this, it's kind of make it a little less thick there. Okay, now there's some greens in there that are a little bit more of a grayish green. So I'm just gonna get some sap and white and some transparent brown oxide, and we'll make some of these leaves that are a little more low-key colored that are in there. So you can really gray it down using some of that transparent red oxide in there. And there's some real bluey greens in here. Just get some of those bluey greens with cobalt in that mix. So you get kind of a grayish blue. And I'm just kind of working them around. So now we've got pretty much all the main elements. Now I'm just going to see where there's some more of those brighter yellow, kind of lime greeny highlights. trying to, you know, make sure I get the same colors and everything as my reference. So there's a little bit of a stem going up there. It's kind of a yellowy green, so I'm just kind of mixing in to that same green. And I might, well, not brush. I think I just need to mix a little more yellow into this sap green mix. So yellow and some sap. To make those little stems. So you can just throw a few stem kind of lines in there, just gives it a little bit more of a, you know, something else going on in there. And then I'm going to mix up some more purple. And it's kind of on that pretty, you know, cobalt kind of blue and quinacridone red, purple. I see some up that are, you know, some of those purpley blue colors in there. And also up in here. And I put some kind of in between the flowers. And into the background just to give it some kind of playful, I like that kind of feeling it gives the painting. And I'm just looking at my reference photo and I'm adding some of these colors. This is some quinacridone red I see here. And there's just little kind of marks, all kind of randomly in there to show the different flowers. And I'm just kind of pulling some of those out. And I also will adjust the insides of the sunflowers and make sure I've got enough of that red in there. Put some more of that bluey purple down kind of where there's, you know, there's kind of like a light coming down to the shadows there. Up here, it's a little brighter. I'm just kind of looking around and putting some more of these little highlights in. Okay, and okay. Now, I think in the original I used a palette knife, so I can add some of the highlights using, I'm just getting my little palette knife here. You know, something like this. This one here is quite small and it's easier to control. So I'm just going to get some of that cad yellow light and add a little bit of white to it, so I get a really bright highlight. And you can see how bright that is compared to the painting. And because it's a little cool, I'm going to warm it up by using some Indian yellow in the mix, because I don't want it to be so much colder than the other, you know, paint. So adding a little Indian yellow can kind of help with that. And then just add a few highlights here and there, and you can mix up a little bit darker using that. I'm using some of that cad yellow medium, or cad yellow medium, and this one's quite bright. And down here, there's one. And you can mix up a little bit more of the mid-tone value, some of that cad medium, and some of that transparent brown oxide mix I've got kind of here already, so I can go and add some of those. A few of those strokes in. And then I usually like to put a few thicker, you know, greens in there that are a little bit more also kind of stand out with the palette knife. And so once you get a few of those down, I'll just take my smaller brush again and kind of soften some of the edges in. So just kind of get some of that mid-tone color on my brush. And I can just kind of just soften some of the edges a little. And I'm just going to lighten some of this here. Just soften some of those palette knife marks. And I just like to kind of soften some of these edges a little. I want to get a few thicker and brighter brush strokes on the pink flowers, pinky purple flowers too. So I'm going to mix up in a minute. Some of that. And then you take a little bit of this red and get a few of those little dabs of color in the center. And if you don't like your dab, just get in some darker color and, you know, reshape it. And so I'm going to just mix up some more of that purple and get a few nice thick chunky strokes of that purple color on there. And so I'm going to use that cobalt blue and some white and quinacridone red. And just get a few. Get some thicker paint on there. Just get it in there in a few places. But don't remember not to cover up all your highlights from the wipe away earlier on. I'm just using cobalt and the quinacridone red. I'm just getting some of those thicker bits of purple in there. And I think there's a few blue stems in there too. So I'll get some of that cobalt and kind of mix in some white so it shows up a little more. And I had some of the stems just for fun in blue, and I put some blue kind of in the shadows here. Just kind of get some of those blues in there. And then another thing I see in this painting was some of the little red highlights on the sunflowers. So I'm just going to take a little bit of the cad red and I'm just going to get a little bit of terp in there and going to make sure you scoop it up on your brush and just kind of whip some of that red in there. Then wipe your brush in between so that you get you don't mix it up and start making orange on everything. So you just kind of go with your gut, you know, how much you want to add in there. So there's some real cobalt blue areas. I see a few in here. There's just some real hits of blue kind of going throughout the painting. Kind of balances out the reds and the purples. So I'm just going to take my big brush that I was painting the yellows with and make sure I, you know, soften things off. That maybe too. Just kind of softening some areas off here. So you just kind of looking around for some last minute kind of things I want to add. But otherwise, you know, I think another thing I like to do is put a little purple in the middle. And I just want to make sure I have the centers dark enough, so just dabbing in some of the dark mix I made with some ultramarine blue and transparent brown oxide and some of, there's a little touch of black maybe in there, but not too much. And I just like to kind of make sure those edges are soft around the edge of the center. Well, I think that that's probably pretty close, you know. It's really hard to get it exactly the same as your original. It's a lot more challenging than you think to get those colors the same, but overall the main thing is it has the same, it really has a lot of the same feeling, and that's almost to me more important. It has the same kind of drama and feeling as the first one I painted. So I think I better stop before I overwork it. And there you go. Thanks for watching.